My name's Lynn Downer. I'm a pioneer in the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, circa 1795 to 1816. What's a pioneer, you say? Well, it conjures up an idea of farmers, settlers, things like that. But I'm a regimental pioneer. I'm a soldier, like the rest of the fellows you'll see in some of the pictures today. Some wearing red coats, some wearing green coats. I'm in my fatigues, and despite my size, these are known as my small clothes. So, as a soldier in the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, I have a red coat, like the rest of the soldiers. This is my battle gear, grey pants, and this lovely stovepipe shako, which is the most uncomfortable headgear designed by mankind. It has one purpose: to make me look taller. So I'm in my fatigues. In today's army, these would be my camos, my cadpats, working wear. The British Army, in their wisdom, decided to put white pants and a white wool tunic as your working wear. Why, I don't know. I'd like you to tell how hard I'm working by how dirty my clothes are. But I'm an infantryman. I'm a member of the infantry, like the rest of the soldiers you're going to see today, with a couple of exceptions. The notable one is I'm much better looking than them. Beyond that, though, there are two exceptions that identify a pioneer in the unit. And I'm wearing both of them. I'm wearing this apron. That's a distinction of a pioneer. This is because I work with my hands. I'm an engineer of the day. This protects my clothing and the king's tunic when I'm wearing it. The other thing I'm wearing is a beard. That sounds odd, but it's one way to determine if it's a pioneer in the regiment. The pioneer is, in essence, the engineer of today's army is the pioneer of 1812. The beard is important in this regard. At this time period in the British Army, and in my case the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, you had to be clean shaven, which meant roughly 3 times a week. But pioneers, because we had to leave camp before the army got out of bed, the British Army said, don't worry about shaving, you won't have time. Believe it or not, the privilege of not shaving became a tradition and then a right. It wasn't long before you had to have a beard to be a pioneer, and the Pioneer Corps was in the Canadian Army until 1984, and the last 2 Canadian pioneers in 1984 had red beards to here, and they were grandfathered with their beards because they had been pioneers. They were the only bearded members of the Canadian Armed Forces. So what does a pioneer do? Well, as I said, I'm a soldier like the rest of the guys. I have my cartridge box, bayonet, musket, all my battle gear. But I have this stuff as well, because in essence, I'm a laborer. Every pioneer carried on their body this handy little tool. This is a short-handled bill hook, part of the machete family. It's an incredibly versatile tool, and that's why they all carried them. With this tool alone, I can cut down a sapling about this big, small tree, sharpen the end of it. I can use it as a hammer to drive it into the ground and build a lean-to in a matter of minutes with this. So a lean-to, for those that aren't familiar with them, a couple of upright sticks, one across the top, and you lean maybe cedar brush or pine brush against the back of it, and you sleep underneath it. In the British Army at this time period, a wooden structure of any size was called a hut. So it could be the size of a garden shed or a gymnasium. It was still a hut. A rude hut was a lean-to. So the men that carried these things, now there's 10 of them in a battalion of 1,000 men. There were 10 pioneers led by a corporal. That's just one tool they all carried, because those 10 men could build accommodation for the entire battalion in a day with that tool alone. That's why they all carried it. It was always carried on their belt, as I'm carrying this one. I have a number of other tools here, because my job in essence is to go ahead of the army, clear brush, clear trails, build bridges, build fortifications, take fortifications down. So I have all these hand tools with me. The pioneers carried about 11 different tools. You'll notice I have 2 axes here. They both have leather sheaths on them. That's not to keep them from getting dull. That's my job. The leather sheaths, let's change them around, so I can hang them off this belt. Because the only way we get the stuff into the field is I get to carry it. So I'm kind of like a pack mule of 1812. So this is on my belt along with that. We're at war, so I have a cross belt on with my bayonet on one side, my canteen on the other side, my cartridge box on the other side of that, carrying my musket. These are hanging from my belts. So because I'm carrying my musket in one hand, it leaves one hand free. So what do you do with the free hand? You carry a larger tool into the bush. In my case, I would choose this one. This is a long-handled billhook, which is the longer version of this. Great for clearing brush. I guarantee you there's one in every farm or barn in Ontario, because farmers weren't long learning that when you slash brush with this, it's called a bush slasher sometimes, this pulls the roots out so you only clear the ground once. I would not carry this, for example. This again is the squaring axe. The reason I wouldn't carry this is if I'm the last guy there, I get it. The first guy doesn't want to carry this, it's heavy. So we would leave that for the rookie or the last guy that's in line. Beyond that, the job of a pioneer, I suspect, was chosen. It wasn't something we wanted to do. That, in essence, is their job. The other part of this thing that I always do, because no one else does it, is discuss the muskets that we used. This is a flintlock musket of that time period. Popular from about 1760 to 1860. Horribly inaccurate and very unreliable. You needed two teeth in your head that met. Didn't have to be yours as long as they're in your head. And two fingers or finger or thumb on your right hand that oppose, so you could grasp a cartridge from behind you, bring it to your mouth, bite off the paper and spit it out, so you could access the black powder to put in this pan. You can see that or not. You poured a bit of powder in this pan, close that frizz that captures the powder in the pan. The rest of the cartridge got rammed down the barrel with this ramrod. And this is where theory meets reality. This is one moving part. That's it. When I pull the trigger, this piece of stone, this flint, will drive that frisson forward. A spark will fall into that pan. It will ignite the powder. That will burn through a hole in the barrel and ignite the main charge. That's how they work. You may see a spark. That would have fired. The dilemma is, if I do that 5 or 6 times, the flint will become dull. It won't spark. The powder may fall out of the pan. If it's windy, if it's wet, it won't work. Historically, they work 6 times out of 10. So 40% of the time you're fighting with to make it work. And while you're doing that, you turn yourself sideways to the enemy to provide as small a target as possible and frantically try to make this musket work. Now, people are shooting at us while I'm doing this, of course. The other part of this musket you need to understand is it works 6 times out of 10, horribly inaccurate. I draw from an 1811 manual of arms that actually states, a man struck and felled by a single musket ball from a single musket at a distance of 50 yards would be deemed most unfortunate. Which is their way of saying if I fired at you alone from 50 yards, I wouldn't hit you. So when you watch movies, you see guys in red coats standing like this, like idiots in a field, lined up shoulder to shoulder, firing away, and you're wondering why don't they go into a bush, why don't they hide behind a tree or a rock or something. Battle tactics are determined by the weapon. This weapon one-on-one is almost useless. It's more reliable as a club than a firearm one-on-one. But at the same time, if I fired at you from 50 yards, I probably wouldn't hit you. If 10 of us fired at you, somebody might hit you. If 100 of us fired at you, you're dead. So when you see them all standing in the field firing both sides, that's why they fired that way. And I'll do the commands for you, just so you know this is how it worked. The command to fire this weapon is, make ready, present, fire. You notice the command I didn't give. I didn't say aim. There's no sight on this. It's a pipe. There's no sight here. This is a clip to hold my bayonet on. The command to present this is a literal command. Present it in the direction of who you want to hurt and get it unloaded. The business end of it was the bayonet, but the musket itself, when you think about the drill, when you'll see maybe some pictures of fellows doing drill later, shoulder to shoulder, firing them all at once, they took a weapon, the British Army, that was almost useless by itself, worked 60% of the time, and was horribly inaccurate, and they ruled the world for 200 years with the drill that you'll see later probably. Beyond that, I usually ask for questions, but we can't take questions. So I think maybe later we'll make some musket balls for you. Take care.